Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. This is the podcast at talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, music, pop culture, sports, social media, everything really, depending on the guest, we talk about it all. And my guest, well, first of all, as always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On Twitter, you know me as PD Beats. My guest is a singer-songwriter. He is a producer. He's a record executive. He has a number one hit record. We are with Mims. What's why I'm hot, Mims. Mims, welcome to Popternative, man.
Man, thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having me on the show.
Whether you write music, whether you act, you do any of that stuff, you're all storytellers. When did Mims decide he wanted to be a storyteller?
That's a tough question. I mean, I think for me, I got inspired by music at a young age. So I grew up in Washington Heights, New York. So it's like really a place like right above Harlem. And, music has been an influence for a lot of New Yorkers for many decades. So I think for me, no different, man. Growing up, listening to some of the greatest musicians or hip hop artists touch the mic and they come out of New York City. I feel like, at some point, everyone in New York is kind of like born with that knowledge of hip hop knowledge. So for me, it started out at a young age and falling in love with hip hop and, MCs like the Biggies, the Jay-Z's, the Nas's. That kind of got me into, appreciation and love for the music.
For sure. People have a lot of aspirations in music. People want to, make a living performing, touring, making music, getting a hit record. You have a number one hit record with This Is While I'm Hot. Does that sink in still anytime anyone says that?
Yeah, it does. It's bittersweet because it was like literally like my first major commercial release, and it was like the first record I put out and the first record that kind of like I guess topped the charts. So I guess you love sports, so imagine, because I'm a sports fanatic, and so imagine a rookie getting into the NBA, winning his championship the first year in, winning the MVP the first year in, and that's kind of how it feels like. And obviously it's tough because the following year, I didn't win a championship, or I put music out, but it wasn't as huge as that record. So it kind of becomes like a gift and a curse at the same time. The gift is I got to achieve something that many people could never say that they will do. But the curse is that it's very, very hard sometimes to achieve that same amount of success.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna say though, I mean, like you've had other like Mims has a lot. You have a lot of songs, man. I know, I'm hoping that whole that term, the one hit wonder, they better not associate that with Mims because there's other songs, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I think it's hard. I predicted in 2006 and 2007, I did a partnership with a company by the name of Microsoft, and I remember I had a interview back then, and I predicted. I said, music is no longer going to be about albums, a total body of work, more than it is going to be about, individual singles that artists are allowed to put out, because the digital era is going to take over from the physical era, and we're not going to see it coming. And I think I was probably like the last, because the album itself, I think I did pretty well. I think we moved about 300,000 or to close to 300 to 400,000 units on the actual physical album. So there were people who actually bought into the body of work. But after that, I mean, forget about it. Nobody really wanted a CD or a tape for any artist. They really just wanted to download music to the MP3 player, and that was it. So,
I mean, obviously, there's not a lot of performing going on right now in quarantine. But were you still? Because we're going to talk about it. You've been working on some apps and some other cool stuff, and you're always on the grind and everything. But were you performing still?
I still am. And unfortunately, I had about maybe 6 show cancellations throughout this whole quarantine thing. But one of the things I can say is that I've been committed to being on the road. I love being on the road. Last year, I actually started, because in my first couple of years in, I was doing, club venues, concert venues, and then I just kind of like focused my energy on being abroad and international. And then the last couple of years, I've been really kind of focused on getting back into the concert venue. So I've been doing really well, touring, and, living life and making a good amount of finances, taking care of myself, doing it as well.
You mentioned the digital age, and I find it interesting. This is While I'm Hot. This is Why I'm Hot. That came out, I think, was that 11, 12 years ago?
Yeah, I would say 13, almost 13 now, I think.
And it's one of those things
13,
where
14
people
years.
can go listen to it on Spotify right now if they wanted to. People can go on YouTube and listen to it. Isn't it crazy how it just like the longevity of it, Mims, is really cool.
I think the beauty about now and social media is that you see a lot of records that were prevalent in the past starting to really kind of like come back into play. And the reason why I feel like is you have half of it is nostalgia. So for the people who lived during that era, they love to hear it again. And then the new people who are hearing it, they may not have recognized it from before, but because it becomes popular, they consider it new music. I mean, you look at like apps like TikTok, and you have artists that some of these kids nowadays would never know who they are to save their life, and they know exactly who they are because of music. People know who. I mean, I get blown away when I see people know who even some of Michael Jackson's biggest records are, and he's been obviously dead for several years now. So.
Well, what I find interesting about that, I'm glad you say that. I'm all over the map with the music I listen to. I listen to a lot of. I had phases, right? Everyone had the hip hop phase, and I don't like referring to it, you know what I mean? But they called it back in the day the gangster rap, the G Unit, the 50 Cent. I never liked that, but people had that phase, you know what I mean? And of course, a lot of artists, there was Mims, there was Chingy, there was Chamillionaire, there was a lot of these artists, right? And like you guys were kind of part of like a group of like a genre of music, you know what I mean? What do you kind of think about that looking back? Like, what do you think about you being grouped with a lot of these artists? Because that music came out at the same time, and hip hop was really big at that time.
The beauty is that I've built relationships with some of these artists because we end up touring together. I mean, like I think I have a concert on schedule with Chingy it was supposed to be tomorrow, but I think we postponed it till August. Chamillionaire. A lot of these people you meet and you meet on the road. I don't particularly know if our music. I don't know if we ever got in the studio and created together, if we would all be congruent with one another. But the one thing I will say is because of the era we came out, I think there's a mutual respect for one another as an artist. I think it's cool. I mean, I don't. Last year I performed with it was myself, Ja Rule was the headliner, Ice Cube was one of the headliners, Chingy was there, I think E40, a few artists, and it was called the Old School Throwback Show. And in my mind, I'm like, well, damn, like am I considered an old school artist already? But then when you talk about some of the people you get to bless that stage with, like Ice Cube, I mean, come on, like for me. I grew up listening to him as a youngin. Like I'm honored just to even be on the same stage as someone like that. 15 years away from putting one of my biggest records out. So
for sure, you've been working on something called Creator with an 8.
Yeah.
Could we talk a little bit about that? What's that all about?
That is it started out as a passion. I wanted to dive into the software world as a passion, and I wanted to kind of figure out how I can fuse music, the music world with the software world. And I came up with this concept of creating an app that allows anyone, no matter where they are, to use their phone as a recording studio. I started out, I remember, because it's crazy. I called a friend of mine by the name of Blackout, actually, the DJ who produced This Is Why I'm Hot, and my other business partner, Eric Mendelson. And we quoted out a price for building an app at that time was like $750. So I'm like, yo, boom, let's do it. So about maybe $2 million later, the app is still obviously a work in progress. I think we are almost done with, I guess, revamping it and putting it back into the iOS store. But essentially, that's what it does. Is it allows anyone with a cell phone to use their phone as a recording studio. And the bonus about it is that you can collaborate with award-winning producers all over the globe. So I'll reach out to someone per se, like I'll use Timbaland as an example. I'll say, hey, Timbaland, people can't afford your beat normally. Can you put it on the app? And then instead of, having one person unlock your track, have 1 million people unlock it. You can still charge anywhere between $0 to $4.99. But the people who are downloading it get the opportunity to work with you. And I think
the accessibility, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. How long have you been working on this for?
3 years currently, or little over 3 years. So
and was it a beta at one point? Like, did you have it as beta version?
Yeah. Well, here's the truth. In the software world, what I realized is everything is a beta until you really just put it out. So we originally launched a beta version maybe 3 years ago, and then we ended up pulling it out the store. We ended up getting some funding from a very large venture capitalist group, and then we revamped the app, put it back out. And then we wanted to introduce the Android version, which was a little bit more difficult. So we had to go into development with that. And, it's just been one big roller coaster of learning, of a learning curve. But the beauty about it is that I'm learning not only how to, survive in the software world, but I'm learning how to integrate music into that as well.
Very cool. No, that's amazing. And I'll put all the event. You'll give me all the links so I could put in the description so people could check out the app.
Absolutely.
Because I want everyone to check it out. You have a number one song. You've toured in front of thousands of people. You've been on many interviews. You've had a great career as a producer, singer, songwriter. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have based on your experiences to young up and coming artists? Business-wise, passion-wise, what can Mims say right now?
So, the passion side is easy. You do what you love and you stick with it, no matter what people tell you, because there's always going to be someone. I don't care if you want to say ABCs on a record. There's always going to be an audience that likes and appreciates what you do. So stick with what you love, be passionate about it, wake up every day and enjoy what you do. From a business perspective, which is a lot harder because the music industry is so saturated, I would say pay attention to technology. Technology is the key to being discovered. Right now, I manage an artist. I have a management company. We collectively manage an artist by the name of Jufu, who's, a rising artist by utilizing the TikTok platform. And he's doing really, really well for himself and, created and carved out a whole lane for himself. And I think when I see artists like him who say, okay, how can I get in differently? It's no disrespect to the artists that are trying to do the traditional thing, but if you keep hitting a dead end, it's because you're not innovative enough, and you need to kind of understand what technology does and learn how to be innovative and utilize it.
Absolutely. It's pretty cool because this Saturday I've been doing a lot of Instagram lives, like talking to people kind of like this, but live. But I'm doing on Saturday, I've been Popternative Fest. I'm having people kind of call in and they're going to be performing songs, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
So I've been doing that. I was actually a concert promoter when I was younger. Like, I'm in my late 20s now, but I started when I was 17, 18 and I was booking shows. You can't buy that type of education, man. You learn so much.
Oh, I'm sure you've seen it all. And you bring up a great point. Look at what Travis Scott just did with Fortnite. Look at what they were able to do with that campaign. I think a couple people did it before him, but he performed, I believe, I want to say someone told me they were charging about $5 to $10 a ticket for him to perform via the game. And it was, from what I heard, about 15 million people in attendance. So I don't know how the money equates in that world, but you see how you're thinking, your innovative way of thinking is going to be the forefront, because artists may not be able to get back on the road. So building that audience to have artists perform using social media is a huge thing for the future.
Did you see Post Malone do the Nirvana stuff, the live
Yep.
stream? That was so cool.
It was sick. It was
sick, right?
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I love seeing it, man. I love when people are just being innovative with their way of thinking, and entertainment isn't. It may be different on how we receive it, but it's not going anywhere, man.
No, it isn't. Well, Mims, thank you so much for coming on Popternative to chat, man. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. PD Beats, you making any tracks, man?
So my dad, before he was a doctor, was in the music industry and I was a record producer.
Okay.
And so he's the original Beats.
Okay.
Because we were both drummers, right? That's how I got my name. My stage name and my DJ name was DJ PD Beats.
Okay.
So no, for sure. We'll talk a little bit. But it would be cool to have to maybe do an Instagram live with you sometimes. Ask some questions. That'd be cool.
For sure. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date, and then talk where they could find Creator?
Yeah. Well, I'm like the ghost of everything. So I'm like zero dark dirty, as they say. I have social media, but
you have it, but you don't have it.
I don't use it. Yeah. So at Mims Life is my handle for mostly all of them, but I'm never on it. So MIMSLIFE. And then as far as the app is concerned, I mean, you can download it in the iOS store right now. We just pulled back on the Android version because they have way too many phones that we have to worry about. So look out for a release for that maybe in the next couple of months. But right now, iOS version is in the App Store currently. And I think we're pushing an update in the next week or so because we had a couple of issues on the last one. So anyone watching this, man, be on the lookout for it. iOS store creator.app. And we here.
When you do interviews, does anyone ever ask you to end with a little bit of a sample from your number one hit song? Does that ever happen?
I get it. This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. I'm hot because I'm fly. You ain't because you not. This is why I'm hot.
Thank you so much, man. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. And until next time, this is Mims and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.